everyone, and welcome to Mother Knits. My name is Catherine, and in today's episode, we're going to be diving into the vibrant world of colorwork. I'm going to be sharing all of my favorite colorwork patterns with you. I'm going to be sharing some yarn options. I'm going to be sharing lots of different techniques. So we have a little bit of stranded color work, we have mosaic, we've got some stripey, scrappy projects, sweaters, shawls, a little bit for the kiddos. And I've got 10 patterns that I think do a really good job at pulling from the whole world of color work at the moment, and just some things that are really standing out to me as very super special. I am wearing the first ever stranded colorwork project that I did, which is the Mandrian Pullover by Neilan. And I do have patterns today broken down by like things that I think a beginner would have a good time with, all the way through some pretty like, how does that work? kind of like, how did she do that kind of designs? But the thing I want to say about that is that you can do any project as a beginner. I mean, this was like a 3-stranded work, purling with color work situation in this pattern. Almost anyone would be like, yeah, maybe not for like your first stranded work, project. But I've never been a fan of listening to that. If I see something that I think looks really beautiful and I want to try it and I want to knit it, I just go for it. So I just wanted to give that disclaimer before jumping into some of these patterns, because there's a wide range of like, some of these I think would whip up super fast and super easy. Others would be more of a commitment as far as time and just like mental bandwidth. So there's a whole range of things here. However, I just think I just want you to feel encouraged, like jump into colorwork. I think it's such a beautiful way to bring personality to knitting. So you guys will see every so often, I'm just looking down at my laptop because I have some notes about each of these patterns. Now, I did put all of these that I'm going to talk about in a Ravelry collection in a bundle, and I'll link that below. And then there's a lot more in there that I have my eye on too, but everything that I'm talking about is cataloged in there so that you can go in and click on the ones that are resonating with you if you want to really like get into the project notes and, really stew on it a bit more. There is that bundle with those links for you. Let's start with some of the stripey things. The very first pattern that was new to me, and I think this is a new pattern. Yes, it came out in August of 2024, is the Collected Slipover. This really spoke to me because of just how absolutely wearable this one is. This is a worsted weight pattern, which for me is most of the garments that I wear, I tend to be really drawn to fingering weight, sometimes a DK, and worsted for me feels like I'm wearing something bulky. That's just my preference. And so I think this would knit up really quickly, and I got excited when I saw this pattern because I thought it would be a really fun way that if you have a special skein of variegated yarn, it would work so beautifully into this pattern. I have always had my eye on, and maybe you can relate to this, to the spin cycle yarns, those really interesting, multicolored skeins of yarn. And I've always been really intimidated to use them, even in patterns that call for it, like the Easy V sweater, which was one of the first colorwork patterns that I found by Caitlin Hunter, who I didn't include any of her patterns in today's roundup because, I don't know, I guess I just feel like many of you might know her, but if not, many of her patterns are saved in the bundle, so you can go check those out. Her color work to me is very inspiring. It has a very American look to it. There's just something about her designs that to me feel like very like American designer, very modern, very like, I don't know, like, is she from Portland? Because I feel like there's like a vibe. It's like, it's really cute. I really, really love her stuff. But I didn't include her because I feel like a lot of us know the Easy V sweater. Anywho, that sweater calls for spin cycle. And I've never done it. I've never bit the bullet and bought it before. When I saw this pattern though, the simplicity of this and how that yarn, because of the stripy effect, I think that something like a special yarn like that would really be able to kind of be the show in a sweater like this. I also personally love that it is short sleeve, and I'm thinking about doing a whole other roundup of patterns of like winter looks that aren't like this. Like this is very, very warm for me. Like this is probably not something I'm gonna knit again. Like this silhouette, this sort of yoke situation, as gorgeous as it is. I don't know though, I might. I love this, but it's not practical for me. And this pattern, very practical, very, very wearable, very modern, just would work. I could even see myself throwing this over like a maxi skirt or like a maxi dress, jeans, like so many different things. Tucked in, like not tucked in. Anyway, I just think it is very wearable. I like the silhouette. I think that it would give me, I'm just very tempted with the spin cycle yarn to like incorporate that into this, or a really special variegated yarn. So this was actually part of the Driftwood series, or the Driftwood collection by Farmer's Daughter Fibers. They might have kits for this. I may have gotten an email and seen that. If not, there's lots of information on this Ravelry page about the yarn that they used and the yarns that they recommend. However, use whatever yarn you want. And again, this is a worsted weight pattern, so I do think that this would knit up pretty quickly. And this, I forgot to mention that the designer is Tiff, or the pattern maker is Tiff Neilan. Now, the second pattern that I want to chat with you guys a little bit about, it is not actually striped knitting. It's a different technique, which I am not as familiar with, and that is the Seaglass Cardigan by Wool and Pine. This is one of those patterns where like possibilities are like endless, and it is truly like a scrappy project. I don't tend to gravitate towards scrappy projects almost ever. I don't know. There's like the scrappiest project that I have started is I think it's called the Battenberg blanket, and that's on my Ravelry page. And it's these mini, it's so cute. It's a little crochet project with mini granny squares that you just make like 1,000 of them, and then you've got a bed, like a bedspread. And I like that idea of just, when I'm done with the skein and it's fingering weight, I just take the rest of that ball and make those little granny squares and just keep it in a bag. And that's just like, over the years, that's sort of been my plan, because it's so rare that I find a garment that can satisfy what I want from a garment, but also be a scrappy project. But I think that this one really does do it. And this is calling for DK weight. So the beautiful thing about that is that you can use your scraps from a DK project, but you could also just take 2 pieces of fingering weight yarn and hold them together. And then that works too, should work for your gauge. Now, there are a few different really gorgeous colors here. I am really gravitating towards that blue. I think that that is super pretty. So the other thing I'm really loving about this pattern, it looks like they are going to really hold your hand through the process. I see that there's a video tutorial. I see that there is a lot of thought put into making this as easy of a process for you as possible. So there's no steeking, there's no sewing. It just feels to me, as I read through the description of this pattern, that there's been quite a lot of thought and care put into the construction and how this is going to work. Oh, she also says you could throw in some worsted weight yarn for an eclectic look. Why not, right? So it is a true stash buster project that is wearable. She says the entire cardigan is knit using a basic stranded colorwork technique called 1x1. This means you alternate between the main color and the contrast color every stitch, creating a beautifully blended effect. So what I love about this is that you're not going to have any long floats. It sounds like you're just knitting every other stitch, right? You've got your main color and then all of your contrasty, scrappy colors. And that's what's going to carry that main color all the way through, because I wasn't understanding when I first saw this, like, how is that looking so cohesive? And essentially you're just holding both strands and knitting every other. And I bet once you get started on that, there's quite a flow to it, and it would probably be even kind of fun. Now, the thing that came to me with this pattern though, is I don't know if it would bother me if the sleeves weren't pretty similar. So just something to think about with a pattern like this, like if you are using some color over here, you want to make sure you maybe have a little bit for the other arm as well. I would be thinking about that if I was starting to get some colors out and putting this one together. But I have a feeling that a project like this, there would be such an enormous amount of joy and satisfaction in simply the laying out of all of your colors and really figuring out and like weighing everything on the gram scale, and just like that whole part of like getting prepared and putting everything in a project bag. I think that would be like such a joy for a project like this. So I find this one to be really interesting, and I find it exciting. There's no purling if you guys are worried about that. If it's like something that you're like, oh, color work, but I don't want to do a bunch of purling with this one. Somehow they've ensured that you're only knitting on the right side for this project. So it's just a fascinating pattern to me. That one really, it sparked my curiosity quite a lot. Now I've got the next two patterns. Let's talk about some like more traditional stranded color work and some beautiful florals. I am kind of a sucker for floral knits, like anything that has a little bit of whimsy or a little bit of botanical. I am captivated, and I just think it's so beautiful and so feminine, and I want more of that in my wardrobe. One that has been with me for a while that I think would have been probably such a perfect first stranded color work sweater for myself is the Loom Sweater by Sari Nordland. This is again another worsted weight sweater, so I think you're gonna get that satisfaction of really just seeing your fabric grow quickly. And this pattern, I looked at a lot of different of these more traditional color work patterns, and this one is just so classic, and I love the dark gray and the cream. I have yarn for this. I have the Knit Picks Wool of the Andes yarn and charcoal, which is what I still have a ton of it left over, even though I used a bunch in my Arizona winter jacket. I still have plenty that I could use for a project like this. And then for the cream, I have Lion Brand Touch of Alpaca. So I would need to kind of gauge swatch those and see if that would work. But I think a sweater like this would look really beautiful, a little bit oversized, at least for me, especially this is a Sari Nordland sweater. It's a bit snug. I think this would be, if you are feeling like I want to get into that beautiful stranded work, color work, but I want something very approachable, I think this is it. And I would go with a very high contrast here, meaning I would do a really dark main color and do that accent color in a really nice white or lighter color. That's just me. That's what I would go with. I think that the gray or like dark brown, like a dark neutral or even a navy, that would be so pretty. And then keeping that in like a cream, keeping the flowers in a lighter color like that would be really, really beautiful. Very classic, just so wearable. And I would definitely, yeah, I think I would go up even like maybe 2 sizes in this one because I would just want it, because it's worsted, I just would want it to feel a little bit oversized. Now, the next pattern, pattern number 4, is Azucena pullover. This is just so romantic and feminine and beautiful. And again, just 2 colors here. So it's, this is a fingering. This is a DK. She has a fingering and lace held together. So she's probably doing like a sock yarn or a fingering weight yarn with like something like a mohair is what I'm guessing, because it's a very like, there's a lot of halo and fuzz happening with this one. What I am surprised though is that would typically I wouldn't expect that with Colorwork, that real like hazy fuzzy thing, because you want your Colorwork to really stand out and to pop. But it works here. It really, the softness of the lines and like even the detailing around the sleeve, and then the softness of that, like, yeah, just that halo on her sweater really, really works together. And I just think this is such a beautiful one. It's been on my wish list for quite a while. And speaking of that, I'll link below if you guys want to support the channel. I have a bundle of things that are on my wish list on Ravelry. So if you ever would like to gift me a pattern or kind of influence what might be on my needles next, I would just be like delighted if you would ever want to send a pattern my way. This is one that for me really encapsulates like such a pretty and feminine look, and I just thought it was really, really sweet, very delicate. What I like about this pullover is that it is just a little bit more formal, or like a little more dressed up, I would say, like in the whole roundup that I have for you today. Like this one, it's that sweater that you might want to pull out when you just want to feel a little extra, you know, where the loom pattern, to me, that feels very like wear it anywhere kind of a look, and just a little more casual. Azucena is just like a little bit more of an elegant and just refined and delicate kind of look to it. Pattern number 5 is the Mondrian Pullover. This is by Alexandra Tavel, who is also known as 2 of Wands. And this is a bulky weight sweater. So if you want something that's gonna knit up super quick, this would be it. And I think that I almost didn't include this sweater in the roundup because I was really looking at this and studying it for a bit. And for a minute, I was like, this is a little too trendy for me, this color blocking thing. Like, I have a pretty like feminine, traditional kind of style, and I'm intimidated by these big like color blocking looks. But then I started looking at the yarn that's recommended, which is the Lion brand yarn Hue and Me, and I started thinking about this a little more. And what I think would be really fun with a project like this is having your colors analyzed, or get online and try to find what your natural color palette is. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, there is these different seasons that all of our complexions really resonate with. So for myself, with my coloring, with kind of like my darker features and hazel eyes and skin tone and all of these things that go into play, I am a natural autumn is what I was diagnosed as. And I agree. I think those colors really, really work for me. And I just had a friend get this done, and she's a soft autumn. So her colors are like just a little softer than, and a little more muted than some of the colors in my palette, but very, very similar. And if you know what your season is, this would be such a fun way to pull from that palette and pull all of the colors that are very flattering for you and put them into one garment. And because it's a bulky weight, and because this yarn is kind of affordable, it feels a little bit of like a why not? Like, why not give it a try? And I also think this pattern would be super cute on my daughter, who is 9. And I think I could probably figure out a way to modify it a bit, or even just make it a little bit oversized for her in the smallest size available, so that she could pick some really bright, punchy colors, that would be so fun for her. I already mentioned it's a bulky weight yarn, but the type of color work here is called intarsia knitting, which I've never done, but it looks very simple. Like, it's just a matter of essentially changing colors. Like, I don't think that there's too much to it. It seems like it's a pretty simple, straightforward thing. And again, I would go with this one, especially with that bulky weight yarn. I'd want the fit to be a bit oversized, I think. And she tells you in the description of the pattern how much positive ease she recommends. But I see this as just that, like, throw it on over jeans, put your hair up in a messy bun, you know, grab your big mom bag and like out the door kind of look. And it has a little bit of that sort of like art teacher vibe that I'm really drawn to, that aesthetic that I love. So yeah, and at first I was like, no, I'm not going to include this. It's like too trendy, like not for me. But then I really looked at it more, and now I'm like, I'm going to knit this. Like, I think I actually love this and I need it. There's so much fun to be had in this pattern, and really choosing some colors that could really complement your style and your wardrobe. I just think it's great. So I like did a full turnaround on that one and thought I would include it. I think it's really, really fun. So let's move on to some shawls. So Natasha Hornby is quite the knitwear designer. You guys, she has some patterns that for me have swept me up. I've never actually knit any of her patterns, but the one that I wanted to feature here, our number 6 feature, is the Yara Shawl. This is like inspired by Moroccan design. The more that I looked at these photos, I was just like hypnotized. I couldn't stop clicking on all of the photos and wanting more. Like, I couldn't get enough. She really prides herself on creating a grand mosaic shawl each year, and this was one of those years. I think it was one of the earlier shawls that she came out with. You can go to her page and check out, you know, the shawls that she's done. I know the artist shawl was very popular this year. I even had my eye on one of those yarn kits and was just like, man, it is beautiful. And I saw that she's taking that same diamond pattern and it looks like she's putting it into a sweater. If that has been released by the time that this comes up, I will link it and include it, because I am very interested in keeping my eye on that one. It looks like it's being test knitted at the time that I'm recording this. But back to this Yara shawl. It looks like there's a few different techniques happening here, but there's definitely some mosaic knitting, which is such a relaxing way to knit. Now, mosaic knitting, if you've never done it before, it can feel a little intimidating just when you're first wrapping your head around it. But then once you get started, you realize it's actually like kind of a super easy, brilliant way to do color work. You have two strands typically. You have your main color and your contrasting color, and you'll knit a round or a row with the main color, and then you pretty much just pick up, or you'll go, you'll knit like 2 rows if it's flat, because you'll go down and back with your main color. Mosaic knitting is pretty brilliant because you just, are working pretty slowly, because every time you knit a row, it's almost like you knit on top of it the next time around. It's a very meditative, very relaxing and engaging way to do color work, in my opinion. For this shawl, I love the high contrast colors. There's some of these where I think like low contrast could be kind of cool, but not this one for me. For me, I would want that really graphic look on a shawl like this. And I love the crescent shape of it. It looks like it's just the right size of shawl, at least for me. Like the way that it's being worn in the pictures and the size of it feels very wearable. It feels very stylish. Just fell in love when I saw this one, and it looks like, this is one of those by Natasha that, because she has these new patterns coming out that are getting a lot of attention, I thought it could be kind of interesting to kind of like dig a little bit deeper, see what else she had to offer. And this one was just blew me away. I just had to share it with you. Now, the next shawl is called the Scout Shawl by Florence Spurling. This is a really intricate and very pattern-filled shawl, really heavily inspired by this quilting trend that we're seeing. Caitlin Hunter Amy Christophers, who does the pressed flowers pattern, which I'm obsessed with. I love her shawl. I'm knitting the vest right now. All the pressed flowers, everything. I didn't include this here because, I don't know, I guess I just assume you all have seen or heard of the pressed flowers everything, but she just came out with like a quilted inspired cardigan or sweater. This Scout shawl by Florence sort of takes that patchwork trend and puts it into a shawl here, and I love it. Like, I would never love this look in a sweater or in a garment. That would be too much for me. I wouldn't be into it. But as a shawl, I love this. I love the pops of color. I love the way that this is put together. It has a very like traditional meets modern feel for me. And it looks like for this one, you're gonna want to take a look at some fingering weight yarns. I wouldn't call this exactly like a scrappy project, but you might have some leftover skeins that can, make their way as some pops of color in this one. And this is just a color work lover's dream project here. I think it's actually really, there's like a classic look to this. I especially love the picture with like the different tones of like the brick red with the brown and the cream and the terracotta and the mustard, like all of that. It just feels like such a fun fall scarf, like perfect, like throw it on and go to the pumpkin patch kind of look. It just looks like apple cider, and I just love it so much. And then you could also totally take this in a spring direction and do some lavenders and pinks and, like some really beautiful like Kelly green. That would be super, super fun as well. So those are 2 Colorwork shawls that I thought were really worth mentioning. And now I've got some accessories that I want to share with you. So this next pattern, it was a funny story. I was looking through a bunch of Colorwork things, and my son Isaac, who is 6, was sitting on my lap and cuddling with me as I'm looking through things. And he's, offering his opinions about different projects. And we're scrolling and he's like, I love that fox hat. And so this is a baby fox hat by Drops Design. My son thought it was so cute. And I have two boys. I have a 6-year-old and an almost 5-month-old baby Vincent. And I saw this and I just had to include like a fun kids color work something for you guys, because, you know, I'm a busy mom and I'm always keeping my eye out for like cute, quick kid knits. And I think that this is a good one. I like this pattern because it's 2 pieces worked flat, which are then seamed together, which gives you that ears effect for the fox. There are sizes premature up to 4 years old. So I might need to do like a little bit of playing around to make this for my almost 7-year-old son, but I still think he would really enjoy it. There's a chart that comes with this. I believe this is it's a free pattern, but I did start really looking into it, and it's not the most enjoyable pattern to read, but the chart is there and it looks straightforward enough that if you have any experience with reading charts, like you're gonna be fine. So what I was thinking for my older boy is like I could knit the chart and then just add a little bit of orange, like on the edges maybe. So it looks like a really pretty easy knit. It also comes with a free pattern for mittens. So if you've got a little bit of that yarn and you're just thinking this is the cutest thing ever, you just go right ahead and make a set of mittens too. So that's just a super fun one. If I ever find a free kids pattern, I just feel like I've got to throw it in there for us. Then I've got 2 more accessories for the adults here. So I really love this hat by Camille Descoteaux. I'm sorry if I'm saying her name incorrectly, but this was actually, I believe this was like her first pattern that she ever put on Ravelry, which is so impressive because it really took off. People really seem to enjoy making this, which is the Alaska hat. And this is a fingering yarn project. I think this would make an amazing gift knit. I think it would, for I think you can like give it to men or women. And again, this would be a really, really fun one. I like the idea of a darker yarn for the brim and the trees, and then that background color being like either sunset colors or like kind of a hazy blue, like winter sky mixed, like a yarn with like light blues and lavenders kind of mixed in there. I think that would be really cool. But I'm personally drawn to when the trees are like the dark silhouettes and then the background is the lighter color or like a sunset color. I think that that's a really, really cool look for this. And then you could get into just making your own pom-pom with that variegated color or the dark one, I guess. But my daughter and I love making pom-poms, and I will link below the kit that we use for making pom-poms. It makes it so much easier. We've done the method where you just like wrap it around your finger, or there's like, or you can make a little cardboard template, and we've played with trying to do that ourselves. And the pom-poms never are as satisfying as when we just use our little pom-pom kit. So I'm gonna link that below because especially if you have kids, pom-poms are so fun. They're so fun to make. Even if you don't have kids, they're such a blast to make pom-poms. And I think this hat needs a pom-pom. Like, I think this one, it's one of those that, like, I don't know, just in my opinion, it needs that fluffy pom-pom on top. So the Alaska hat is one that's just been on my list for a long time. I think my husband would really love this hat. I think it would be super fun and just a really amazing gift knit. I would wear this hat. I think it's so cute. I actually thought that using my leftover green, like this green for the trees, and then I have this gray that could be the background. And I thought that would actually be really cool too. So I have some yarn because it is calls for a fingering weight, and I do think that this yarn from Sonder Yarn would be really awesome as a hat. And then the last pattern, I don't know if you guys have seen these before, but I had to include them because they are so charming and so beautiful, which are the mittens, the fingerless mitts by Yara Heusser. The ones I love are the Underwing mitts, that butterfly, which is that touch of that orange in there, is so beautiful. I love that so much. And I love that for a day where it's just like a t-shirt and jeans kind of day, but you want to have something handmade in your outfit and you can just, you know, pop those on. Or if you're even just wearing like a very basic like cotton long sleeve tee and then you've got this on as an accessory to kind of like really elevate just a very basic outfit in the fall or winter, I think these are so amazing. And there's a whole series that she has. There's like gorgeous birds and dandelions blowing in the wind and owls and foxes and just like so many options to choose from. I think this one, in my experience, when I'm working on a smaller scale, like when I've done toy knitting or when I make baby clothes, you don't get into a rhythm in the same way that you do with like a sweater, because you do the repeat round like 6 times and you're like, okay, I got the hang of this. I know, like I'm good for a bit, you know? And with tiny little colorwork projects like this, I would imagine the flow might be a bit different. So just thought I would put that out there, because it's funny with baby knits, with doing things that are like on this super small scale. Like I made my son a newborn outfit for when he was first born, and he wore it and it was so cute. And I made handmade buttons and the whole thing. It was just so sweet. But I did not enjoy knitting that. It was not a pleasant knit, because I felt like every 20 stitches, I'm doing something totally new. So you're very involved in pretty much needing that pattern to be right there with you as you're working. So just something to note. And sometimes that's super satisfying. You know, you have your pattern and some tea and it's just all right there, and that's great. For me, sometimes that doesn't always work, just being a mom and just the way that life is sometimes. So that's the only reason I think that I haven't started a pair of these mittens, is that I feel like it's the kind of project that it's going to be much more enjoyable if you are not interrupted. And I need projects where I can be interrupted. So anyway, they are so beautiful. Gosh, I would love to knit some of these up for myself and for some of my girlfriends. I just think they are so beautiful. So that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed seeing some of my favorite colorwork projects. And I guess as we were chatting, there were more than 10 kind of thrown in here. So I hope you enjoy clicking on the bundle and diving a bit deeper into some of these patterns. I would love for you to comment below if any of these did stick out to you, or if you're feeling to add some of these into your queue as well. I'd love to know which ones. And of course, don't forget to like this video and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on any Mother Knits content. Thank you guys again so much for being here, and I will see you in the next video.